You're listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast, presented by Pat's Pulpit.
All right, we are here with another week of the Patriot Nation podcast. Your boy Pat Lane flying solo on the Patriots end this side, but I am lucky enough to be joined by a Bills personality as well. It's Kevin Masseri. He works for Cover One, and he also is the host or the co-host of the Going Deep podcast. Thanks for coming on, Kevin. We really appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me, Pat. It's definitely a wild week around Bills land, as everyone could imagine. So,
yes,
some normalcy's not bad for us as fans and podcasters, but really getting into it, and it's just been unprecedented times here.
Right. And so that's the first place to start. I mean, that's kind of been the thing that's been on everyone's mind and what everyone's been talking about, and rightfully so, since Monday night. Obviously, people saw what happened with Damar Hamlin, just an absolutely terrifying situation, something that I've never seen before. My dad was talking about how, a wide receiver, I think in like the 60s or something like that, died of a heart attack on the field. Beyond that, it's nothing that really anyone has had to deal with in the recent past, I should say. And so, it's something that has dominated, basically everyone's minds, right? And obviously, we got some pretty good news today on Thursday about that he is, communicating and responding, and asked about whether his team won the game or not. I mean, just like, so not just the fact that, he's responding to verbal cues, but also that he knows where he is, he knows who he is, he knows what's going on. Like that stuff, to be very honest, on Tuesday, I was not confident we were getting any of that, and to be getting that stuff is just so great. And I think it's fantastic news. Forget about, obviously for Damar Hamlin, right? But for everyone to who had him on their minds, had him in their hearts, to get that news today was awesome.
Yeah, it was excellent. And for his first written comment to be, did we win?
Right.
Was kind of indicative of his personality and mindset of who he was as an individual. Was not that others aren't, but he was an amazing player in person, off the field, and first guy in the room, had a lot of energy, super family oriented, just a great person. As more people are learning about him, he's obviously the Bills' young third safety who stepped in for Micah Hyde early on this season. And so many people didn't, realize he was pivotal to the Bills defense at times this season as a necessary player. And his story is just furthered by his toy drive that he tried to raise $2,500 before Christmas. And then that gets found out. And now we're at $7.3 million to date for that. You had Tom Brady donating. I mean, you had the Ursays, you had Russell Wilson, whomever, I think Belichick. So you had just
Kraft too.
Kraft. You just had a litany of people jump onto this. And what's interesting is he signed a 4-year, $3.6 million rookie deal as a late round draft choice. This has doubled his his earnings. So I'm imagining it's going to be a wonderful toy drive / out for his hometown around the Pittsburgh area. It's going to be an amazing, once he realizes the community rallied for him and across the country, obviously not just Buffalo, not just Cincinnati, across the country, and the community, NFL community as well, rallied around him. Fans, players realized that this was more than just football. And I think the biggest takeaway from all of this was what happened with the coaching staffs, from Sean McDermott to Zach Taylor, in the moment of, I guess there's a world where they could have played that game if neither coach said something. We've seen it happen with not this injury, not this specific circumstance, but ones where people, are badly injured. So where they continue on. So it's really great that you saw Sean McDermott really say, I can't coach this game. Like, I don't care. So it was great that they then called it, made the right decisions. And as we know today, the game is still
Well,
postponed.
right, and that's the thing, and you look at like the NFL is like a steamroller, and they just steamroll over everything. And we're conditioned to see these guys go down, and we're like, yeah, okay, that was a terrible injury, and this guy's unconscious on the field, and it's like, okay, that's scary, but like, all right, let's play again. Like it's we gotta keep going, and the train moves on, and it's like, okay, the players are on the field, and they say a prayer and stuff, and then we move on, and it's just like we've been so conditioned to do that. And in this moment, it was different, right? And you could see it from the players, and the players knew right away. Like you could see the look on their faces, and openly crying on the sideline. You just don't see that happen. And of course, it was obviously a very different situation than we dealt with. But you don't know. And of course, Troy Vincent comes out and says, "Oh, we never said the 5-minute thing, and we never did this, and we never." And that might all be true. I don't know. That might be true. And the refs, or whomever else, right? Joe Buck had said it a few times. Joe Buck might just be working off the playbook of what normally happens when there's a bad injury and then there's an ambulance in the field. Typically, they give 5 minutes and then they play again. So maybe he was just thinking, okay, that's what we're doing this time. But it became very clear that the teams couldn't get back out there. And so it's one of those things, and I think that was 100% the right decision to do. And really, I'm not going to give any credit to the NFL. Maybe the NFL was behind it, but if I'm going to give credit to anyone, it's going to be the coaches, because the coaching staff got together. Whenever you see Zach Taylor walk across the field, and that to me was awesome, because obviously McDermott was there for his guys, and I think the culture that you build in a locker room is so important, and the Patriots have talked about that a little bit, and we'll get into that, but the culture that you build in a team and that family aspect, of course, is so important in the game of football. But to see the other coach on the sideline be like, that doesn't feel right. And he himself walks over and is like, listen, man, like, I don't know what we're doing here, but why the hell are we standing out here? Like, let's go in there, And so, of course, it's kind of a joint decision and so on and so forth. And then they get in there, and, there's questions about what's going to happen. And there's questions about, what are we going to do? And I think ultimately, the NFL had to wait. They couldn't just cancel it and have and people have talked about that, the logistics of getting everyone out of there when you thought you had 2.5 more hours of game time is obviously a little bit different. So they do have to, make sure everything's in place and stuff to get everyone out of there. But nevertheless, the coaching staff stepping up and saying like, all right, no, not doing this, And I will say, because Dark Blue was mentioning about the Denmark soccer game, and I think that was Eriksson that had the heart attack on the field and came back, and they did play a few hours later. They did get confirmation from him, I think from him, that he was okay in the hospital before they started playing. I think he still regretted playing again. I think that it was a lot for them and they probably shouldn't have played. But again, a little bit different because they do get that confirmation, whereas no one had any confirmation about anything that was going on here. And in this situation, it was like, how could anyone play that game without knowing what was going on,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's quite the opposite. There was no confirmation. There was no, but they saw what they saw.
Right.
Who knows the traumatic effects. We saw T. Higgins at the hospital the entire time. How can he's a physical style receiver. He's big, he's commanding. How can he play his style of football, not only in that game, but even in the short term, going forward? He took a lot of heat, wrongly so,
crazy,
across whether it was media or I guess Twitter or Instagram or wherever, took some heat for that. And, Josh Allen just said today, absolutely our thoughts are with T. Higgins as well. He should be getting zero criticism for that, being a physical type of receiver. And, it affects the game. It affects it mentally. Does he go in physical, strong, excuse me, head first into a chest again? I don't know. That's a challenging debate on how that will further affect the game for not only the Bengals, but for anyone across the league. So to see that moment and realize this is not a football moment, like as much as this is a huge game for seeding, it's a huge game. Who goes where, what plays where, Cincinnati fans could say, we were in good position early on in the game, playing a type super great game plan early on. The Bills will tell you, they're better later in the game. So, you can get into that kind of stuff, but it was great that none of that mattered. And right away, it was just a simple, like, this is more important in the situation. And I think the best thing to come out of this is DeMar's story, who he is as a person,
I agree.
how wonderful he is in the community, what he's doing back home, what we were able to raise, and further the discussion on player safety in general. Did T do anything wrong in that moment? No. But is there player safety things that can be done,
Right,
equipment wise, rule wise, anything to do anywhere? So we're focusing on player safety, helmet related, and that's great. We've seen some lapses with Tua, and will we continue to see further advancement of medical benefits and other things when it comes to players post career, and equipment related issues? So there's a lot to consider here, post this, and what the NFL probably needs to say to the NFLPA about this situation. But first and foremost was obviously getting confirmation that DeMar has awoken, and has access to his hands and feet right now. And they say he's neurologically all there. By him asking if they won really brings you back to where the play ended,
right,
which is a great sign that, he's not, can remember to that point,
exactly,
or close to that point.
Right.
So there's a lot of really great signs through his doctors. And then hopefully they take that further and see if there's anything we can do. And if I was the PA, or I was on the PA, or even in the league, I would want someone to say, is this actually something super duper rare? Do we need to do more testing on us as athletes?
Right.
What are you going to do if we do have a condition, or if this pad or equipment related, or whatever it might, rule related? What are in any of these buckets? Like, what are you going to do in any of these? So I think that brings a super important conversation to this come February, March.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that that's something that, the NFL, listen, the NFL is greedy. And the fact is that every corporation is greedy. That's just the truth. I mean, there is no boss there's not no boss. I shouldn't say no boss. That's not true. There's no corporation in the world that is going to do something nice for someone out of the courtesy of their heart. It's just not going to happen. So the NFL isn't going to look at it and say, yeah, we'll increase player safety because it's really important, and we don't want, what happened to Damar Hamlin to happen to any. No, they're not. They're going to use that as a negotiation tactic when they're doing their next thing. Now, do I want to believe that the NFL will do the right thing and, put it in there no matter what, or look into this and do further testing no matter what? I do. I don't know if they will or not. And that's the hard part, is that, you try to give these guys the benefit of the doubt. And it's just like, they take away healthcare, and they take away this, and they take away that. And it's like, man, like, these guys are giving their body and soul for the game, and they're not, this is obviously a very rare case of someone almost dying on the field. But these guys are shortening their lives. They are, like, that's 100%. They're shortening their lives to go out and play football. And you're going to take money away from them, later on down the line. It's just like, that's the stuff for me. Like, I don't know. And so, and it's true. And Dark Blue Gold saying too, like, the PR behind it may force their hand to do it, which is possible. And hopefully it does. Right. But again, it's not out of the kindness of their heart. It's because, PR is bad, or whatever the case may be. But, it's tough. It's hard. And you hope for change to happen, but change is slow, unfortunately. And especially in a big corporation like the NFL, they don't like to change. I mean, they won't pay for cameras in the end zone, for Christ's sake. We have the Patriots game against the Raiders. Who knows if the guy scored or not? Sure didn't look like he scored, but we don't have a freaking camera that can find that. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. They don't care. They don't want to spend the money on it. So you're talking about spending, an extra $100 million on player safety a year. Yep. They're not going to want to do that, and it's just like, so hopefully they get forced into doing it, but it just, that's the hard part. You know what I mean? So,
right.
But I will say
it's interesting.
Oh, go ahead.
I think it's an interesting debate because, like, overall, do they really care if Hunter Henry dropped the pass? If he didn't, do they really care if Devontae Adams or Mac Hollins get their feet down in the end zone? I don't think so. Ultimately, they don't really care. The product's still good. Everyone's up in arms and talking about it, right? I mean, ultimately, it's not bad for them as a unit. Is it bad at an individual play? Sure. But is it bad as a unit? Everyone coming together no, they don't care.
Right.
But I think this is an instance where you got the president involved. I mean, you can't answering if football is violent or not. Parents of kids are listening to that and deciding what sports their kids may play in their life. I just don't know that you can avoid this one. Like, this isn't catch, no catch. This isn't like an instance of, even whether they did the right thing with Tua. There's still conjecture and there's still subjective. Did the Dolphins mislead anybody? Did the league mislead anybody? We really don't know about those kind of things. But when it comes to this situation, there was nothing to be misled. We all saw it with our own eyes. We all heard about the situation. They need to do better as a league to make sure, like, they did great. By the way, shout out to the paramedics who absolutely saved the Bills assistant training manager, who, many rungs above him, I believe. He was the one that actually saved the life of Damar Hamlin on the field in an unprecedented situation. So, absolutely shout out to him and for doing so. And that part of the protocol worked wonderfully based on the doctors, based on everybody, that emergency situation was ran to perfection in a way of limited time and cardiac arrest. So all of that led to better outcomes. However, we need to have that style of response when it comes to player safety, when it comes to rules, when it comes to, even, you can trickle it all the way down to, like, we're not buying the best product with cameras and stuff. But when it comes to player safety, I don't think they can avoid this topic. I just don't see any way around them saying something like, well, we'll research and we'll get back to you in 4 years. We'll let you know what we find over the next. This is a rare thing. I don't think they're going to be able to get away with that. They're going to either have to come with some concrete data, or they're going to have to say something along the lines of what they're doing to better these situations and the way that this looks. I mean, quite frankly, we were all, distraught. You can't have a product that makes people that distraught. So they got to figure out where the protocol needs to lie, because yes, they're still king. Yes, you saw what everyone was able to do generating the funds, and how many people were talking about this who didn't even like football or know who anybody was on the Bills or Bengals, and they're still asking about the scenarios. So it does get a lot of reach, but at some point they need to stay on top and they need to do right by player safety and make sure that, like, they know what happened here and they have a plan to ever prevent a safety and or a receiver from this type of interaction ever again.
Yeah, I agree. So, and that player, that the assistant trainer there was Denny Kellington, which I'm sure you know, but I want to for any of the listeners out there that haven't heard, that's the guy's name, who literally, and they say, like, they don't know for sure, but it seems like, in these types of situations, literally seconds makes the difference. The fact that he started so quickly afterwards, the fact that he started CPR so quickly may have saved his life. And we don't know that for sure, but it may have. And it's something that I'm going to look into, because I'm not CPR trained, but it's something that I'm going to look into because I'm a teacher and I'm surrounded by a ton of kids. And God forbid, what if something happened? Well, if I'm CPR trained now, I can administer CPR if I had to, right? That might save someone's life, as opposed to me calling the nurse running up. That it could save someone's life to do that. And so, I urge you, if you're not CPR trained, to look into it. I'm looking into it right now to see if I can get trained somewhere, because I think it's a fairly quick thing. And so, so we'll go from there. Hopefully.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. At the very least, to take away from everything that's happened here, the value in the proposition of knowing CPR and being able to do so. Like, even, in any situation, a chair backs in and hits a kid, and you never know, like, you just never know these situations. Right. You wouldn't have expected this to happen. And these are trained pro athletes, and it's the right millisecond at the right time, the right impact, the right shock. And you get a scenario like this. But you're absolutely right. Like, CPR is just a wonderful thing to know. And you can literally save somebody's life by, making that determination, learning that skill, and being able to do it. Like you said, I think you can even take virtual classes now. It's different than maybe we were back in the 90s, 80s.
Right. Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. So, and I do think I love the response by the rest of the NFL. And you mentioned obviously his toy drive and how much money they've raised. And you've seen everyone around the league do it. And you've seen organizations and individual players, Mac Jones and Marcus Jones, and a ton of the Patriots players have donated money to it, which I think is great. It's a great thing to see. And I just think that the Patriots, and of course, we're a Patriots show, so we're going to talk a little bit more Patriots centric here. I just think that what the Patriots have done here is great. And the fact that, when people talk about, and I love, so Matthew Slater today, he said, people like to paint Bill as being this emotionless guy. This week, I've certainly seen the passion and empathy, his concern for DeMar, his concern for how our players are processing this. He's been very compassionate. And there's been a lot of that talk about, and Slater is a very spiritual guy. Bill asked him to lead the team in prayer this week. And I just think that that's some of that stuff where, back in 2020, when we were talking about social change and all these things, he was kind of on the forefront of that. And Devin McCourty was very open talking about how, we sit down and we talk about these things and we discuss them and we're very open with each other. And I think that having that dialogue open is so important. And we don't see that a lot from Belichick because he doesn't give any of that to the media. But when you talk to people about how the team operates and what the team does, to have that culture, and and we talked about it with McDermott. Like I think that he's done such a great job of building the team as like a family, right? And he's kind of the leader of that, and he runs that. And Belichick maybe it's funny because McDermott kind of has that gruff exterior as well, but he has that same we're a family, right? And you can see it. You could see the players in the field that how concerned they were for this kid who had only been there for a year and a half, right? And so, but he's one of the family, right? And so I think that building that culture is so important to your team. And I think that really separates some of the teams from some of the others. And look, I mean, I just think when you have the right leader in place, that makes such a difference, right? And the Patriots, people have been talking crap about Belichick for the last few years because he hasn't had Brady and so on and so forth. But I think there's no doubt that he's still the right leader. And I think anyone that with a brain that has been watching the Bills for the last few years knows that McDermott's the right guy as well. And things haven't been perfect. Nope. But I think you can tell that how much they respect him and how much they care about him and how the culture has changed in Buffalo. Buffalo was a revolving door of players and coaches and quarterbacks, and it's not that anymore, and that obviously Josh Allen helps quite a bit, right? But that starts with the coach. You have to have the quarterback, I think, but that starts with the coach, and I think that cultural shift, that change has really, really made an impact. And it's great to see. I mean, guys, and then of course, it matters the guys in your team, right? Devin McCourty, 100%. Matthew Slater, those guys are high character guys. I mean, Stephon Diggs taking an Uber to the hospital and no cameras, he's not, he doesn't want any publicity, and the cop won't even let him in. And some ESPN reporter had to be like, "Bro, that's Stephon Diggs. Let him in, would you?" Right. And just the fact that those guys care so much and are there and are it matters. Having high character guys matters, and having that culture makes a big difference,
Yeah, I think you see it, there's obviously football ramifications of it. You said it great. When it comes to Sean McDermott, he's a perfect culture guy to an annoying level, right? To people who are that's annoying. He's just saying that. But he actually, had actions to his words of, a lot of, there's cynical Bills fans who are he's just saying these things. This is not how he actually feels. This is just a shtick. But you see right away that he absolutely practices what he preaches. You saw the dismay in his eyes. You can't make it up. You can't act in that situation, in my opinion. I think it would have spoke volumes of if he didn't have that attitude, but he did. And like you said, sure, it hasn't been perfect. You can go back to, you talking football, you can go back to 13 seconds. That needed to be different. The way they defended that needed to be different. But that just doesn't, it's all secondary. It just doesn't really matter in these instances of what this matters, right? Life, family, culture, to the point where, you have Von Miller calling to play in your team because he knows I can go win one there. I like the culture. I like Stephon Diggs. I've heard wonderful things. I like Josh Allen. You have this to the point where you can trickle this on down into football decisions now when you have draft picks wanting to play there because, you're the better version of yourself. You have players talking about this culture. It's I went to Miami. I went to New York. And nothing matched to where I was here. Shaq Lawson's words of when I was here in Buffalo. And Jordan Phillips has said the same when he went on and tried Arizona out for a little while. So the matter of fact is He builds a tight-knit community. He knows how to do it. He looks for certain players. And the Bills have had to go through a litany of issues here in the community, from the mass shooting in a supermarket in May, terrible, tragic, terroristic action. And then you have all the way down to Matt Ariza's situation, where they just said, I'm not even sticking around for this. I don't care about anything. That's not our traits. So they had to move on from that. They've had a litany of injuries from, their key leaders, Von Miller and Micah Hyde, two huge leaders in the Bills defensive rooms to do this culture thing we're talking about. They had to kind of rebound from those situations. Two storms, one that relocated a Bills game, the other that lost 40 people in it from the brutal cold and people just stuck in cars. You had people knocking cars out, like knocking windows out to bring people into a school. Actually, we're sending one to the game, Bills Patriots game, who actually did a heroic event, saved like 40 people that were stuck in their cars and broke into a school.
That story was awesome. Oh, you guys, who's sending him to the game? Is the Bills sending him to the game?
No, we are at Cover One. So I'm
that's
sending him
so
to the game, awesome this weekend to be there for that. Because just
that's great.
He
that story was amazing. That was like I think that was my favorite story out of the school, and the note that he wrote was so nice. Like. It was awesome. It was great.
Yeah, we call him Merry Christmas Jay because that's what the end of his note said.
That's right.
So spent Christmas in there. So like all these, and then we had a really bad house fire that lost 5 children in it. So like we've had a litany since the spring of incidences of just total. They're battle trained in this. Their culture is huge. They'll say they hang out with each other at their houses. This isn't something they go to the, bars and clubs and restaurants alone and with other friends. They do it all together and they celebrate together, and their coaching staff's just as involved. They bought Chad Hall, the receivers coach, a huge truck a couple years ago. So these are things that the culture has built, and Sean McDermott is irreplaceable in leading this team, regardless of his record, which is still good. One of the best ever, actually. So when it all comes, then obviously you had Josh Allen in his one of the best records to start a career too. So that does help, but it doesn't matter because the culture side of it is right. There's no reason to ever question timeout usage or challenges or whatever, because you have the right man leading the team to build this culture in situations like this, like Damar Hamlin situation. And I just think that when this, like we get through it more and we start watching football again, and hopefully great news continues to come out from Damar Hamlin and UC medical facility in Cincinnati, that you see that Sean McDermott's a culture you want to build for your team, whether it's Brian Daboll in New York or other coaches that continue do the right thing. And the Bills will be an attractive spot for rookies and free agents, as always. So there's just so many ripple effects of this. And the number one ripple effect is we hope that anyone would have acted like this in these situations, and that every room is more prepared now for these situations, because once we thought it would never happen, well, now we have to take a look in the mirror and make sure like we're really on top of the situations.
Yeah, I agree. And that's, I think, Zach Taylor talked about, he walks across the field and the first thing McDermott said was like, I shouldn't be here. I should be at the hospital with him. Like that's real. He's not lying to Zach Taylor when he says that. And Zach Taylor's not saying something to, that's real. And I think that makes a difference. And, Belichick, of course, had a great record with Tom Brady. So that obviously matters. Players, and Belichick says it all the time, players play. Like that's, he said, I have all these wins because I've been fortunate to coach great players. Like he will never take the credit for himself because he understands that as important as coaching is, players are more important. However, having a culture in place that has your team bond as a family and as a team, holds each other accountable, and loves and respects each other, that makes a difference. And anyone that doesn't think it makes a difference is crazy. And so, of course, the stuff on the field matters. Of course it does. But if your coach is good enough on the field, then that other stuff, that culture part of it is just as important. And I think that, it's one of those things that if I'm the Bills, I'm holding on tight to Sean McDermott and saying, like, this is it. This is the guy. Like, we're not going anywhere. We're all set. And, almost like a now, of course, Belichick's won 6 Super Bowls with the Patriots. So it's like, obviously, is a lifetime contract. But if he continues to have the success that he has, like, It's basically like, hey, this is the guy. Like, we're not. What do we want us to do? Like, this is the guy forever. So, I think that's good for the Bills. So, all right. So let's get into. I think we've covered a lot here. So let's just get into the game super quick. Okay. There is a game being played on Sunday still. The Patriots are playing the Bills. It's still a big game for the Patriots. Not so big for the Bills. Doesn't really matter. Seeding a little bit matters, but it doesn't really make a difference. Seems like that Bengals game's not going to get played. And if that's the case, it's impossible for the Bills to catch the Chiefs. So they can't get to the 1 seed, which I think if you asked any of the Bills players, they'd be totally fine with that. They don't care. Like, we don't want to play that game. We're not, whatever. So I think they're happy with the decision, even if it means they don't get the 1 seed. So, but from the Patriots' perspective, of course, they need to win to get in the playoffs. And so, and there is 100%. A way for them to get in, of course, like they could lose and a few other teams could lose too. And then they could get in, back in kind of. But I think it's interesting. And we were talking about it a little bit off air, but you don't know what you're going to get from the Bills this week. And the Patriots have said too, it's been a different week for them as well. But of course it's been a lot more different for the Bills than it has for the Patriots. And so I think, you're going to get one of 3 things are going to happen for the Bills. Either they're going to show up and they're going to be their regular, normal Bills team. Either you're going to get an absolute, they're playing for DeMar. They're going to be at 1,000 and they're going to beat the Patriots 97-0. Or, they're going to be unfocused and, and really their minds will be somewhere else and they'll be sloppy and they won't be as good as they normally are. And then in that case, I think you get a chance, if you're the Patriots. But it's hard to know which one you're going to get from the Bills. I think any 3 of those would be certainly understandable, that you would understand, and you can easily see that happening for any of those 3. And so, I'm not really sure. What do you expect, I guess, on Sunday?
It's a tough question because I think you can see a little bit across any of those, a bunch of scenarios playing out, and it's been hard for us to kind of digest as we kind of look at the football side of like how this is going to play a role. If something like Kansas City was to lose Saturday against Las Vegas, that gives the Bills a jolt for the 1 seed. True. Yep. And I think that might be the last straw to push that toward the Super Saiyan Bills being able to play for the 1 seed now with everything going on. I think that might be enough to push that forward into a stratosphere of getting the good side of the Bills. Now, let's say Kansas City wins. I think we'll hear something in the next 24, 48 hours on the exact rules around this. If it's just straight up win percentage, that might not be enough to see the number 1 best Bills team you've ever seen in your life. I do think that football wise, their goal is to go in super hot in the 10 minutes they played against the Bengals, which the Bills historically DVOA wise, the worst in the first quarter, right? So the Bills adjust and they let you show you your best plays. You saw a great play from New England in the first time these 2 matched up with Jones taking it to the house. Right. The Bills adjusted from there. That's what they do against everybody, whether it's the Bears and Justin Fields scoring on his first drive or the Bengals with Tyler Boyd scoring on his first drive. The Bills adjust, and then they got caught in a couple run blitzes early on in the game. No harm, no foul for them because they will stop run blitzing. Simple as that, and drop into more of a shell, which I plan on seeing probably after that play. I would have planned on seeing the Bills doing. So the Bills want to put out the situation to where they saw the Bengals and how good they can be. I think the 2 seed could matter. It still could matter enough to them to say, like, we want this game in Buffalo next time. We want them to come to have to play in our weather, in our elements, in our situation, in our house. That could matter enough to the Bills to actually see the number 1 style of Bills team against the Patriots in this situation. Though you're right, you could see some situation to where they don't really care. They really still want the week off. They'd rather take a semi-bye, especially if Vegas doesn't win. And they're like, it's probably better for a mental state and a physical state to not go all out, probably match up with the Patriots again. So what are we going to show them to this week? We don't really want to show them anything, especially if in this Chiefs scenario. So I tend to think you'll see the number 1 Bills. I think they'll rally. I think that this is huge. The atmosphere is going to be crazy. I think the 2 seed's pretty important, but it wouldn't shock me to see a different variation. I don't think you'll see something crazy with backup players or anything. Anything's possible to where they could say, you know what, we're going to roll out Case Keenum and Taiwan Jones and practice squad receivers, I guess. I mean, I guess that's conceivable. There is a world that could exist in. But I think more you'll see Josh Allen wanting to play for Damar and the rest of the season. They said this made them ironclad to the situation. So obviously the Bills have a lot to play for and show him that, what he did for this team is going to be rewarded in terms of all the energy and effort that Damar Hamlin brought on a day-to-day basis prior to this. So I think you'll see that, but it is in the back of my mind and wouldn't be totally shocked to see a different mental state from the Bills. But I think they'll want to honor their brother and their teammate by playing the best way possible. And it just happens to be the Patriots in this situation that are playing for their playoff lives. But there's still something to say if Kansas City does win, that maybe they're like, we have a good chance to match up against New England anyways. Let's not show them anything. Them winning or not doesn't really affect us too much. So there is a world that I guess that could happen.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I will say Dark Blue Gold said it too, and I'll say it as well. But I mean, it's the Patriots. It's like the Patriots on Jets week. Like they just want to beat the Jets, and the Bills just want to beat the Patriots, and they want to beat them by 100 every week, right?
You're right.
And so I think
there's part of that. You're right.
Right.
You're definitely right. It's not the Jags coming into town. So
that's right. That's right. You could easily see a letdown game if it were the Jags, or even the Jets or the Dolphins. Like, it's kind of like, okay, whatever. Like, obviously the division rivals. It's the Patriots though. Like, beating the Patriots is always a good thing, right? And if you're a Bills fan, and so.
I got a question for you, Pat. I'll ask you later, and it's just an interesting scenario. One, I suggested where the Bills play 10 men to start their defensive series against the Patriots, because Damar Hamlin's their starting safety. I don't think there's a better way to pay homage to him than that, than his spot being there for him.
Yep.
What would the Patriots do in that situation?
So I wonder, and they did this in the Mississippi State game, and we've seen it done 100 times before, and I think it would be really cool for the Patriots to come out with 10 guys as well, and not run a play, take a delay game, and then the Bills refuse the delay game penalty, and then the game.
That would be the
starts.
ideal scenario. Yeah.
I think that would be really cool. It would be a way to honor him without, playing an actual play with only 10 players. And so I think that would be pretty cool. Dark will go. I don't think it can be 3-on-3 a whole game, but that would be a cool thing to do. Too bad his number is not like 11. You know what I mean? But I do think that could be interesting things to do. I wonder what the Patriots are going to do when they show up. If they're going to be wearing some sort of shirt, if they're going to have some sort of decal on their helmet. I don't know, but I do think just based on the way the league has been run and everyone's been talking about it this week, you have to think that something like that is going to happen this week, because I think that would be really cool for the Bills to come out and, assuming the Bills win the toss and the Patriots get the ball to start. I think that would be an awesome thing to see. Both teams come out with 10 guys and, take the delay game penalty. The Bills obviously refuse the penalty, and then the crowd goes nuts for however long, and then the game starts, So I think that would be a really cool way to do it. And even if the Bills have the ball first, regardless, I think that could be a thing that McDermott and Belichick talk about beforehand. Like, hey, let's just spend a second honoring this kid before the game starts,
I think that would be huge for the sport. Everyone to be tuned in for it. I mean, I still had people like tweeted. I saw people in my mentions like Belichick's going to go deep, and I'm like, I just don't see it. I just don't see that scenario. I just don't see anyone taking advantage of this situation.
No, I mean, listen, he's gonna game plan it, and he's gonna know that you're on your fourth safety now, and so that he's gonna try to use that to his advantage, of course. But like, it's not like they're gonna run out with 10 guys, and Belichick's gonna say, "Oh, well, you got one less guy up there, so we're gonna try to take advantage of it." I can't imagine. The thing about Belichick is that he is such a fan of the game. He's such a historical fan of the game, and he respects the game so much.
And the rule, like the unwritten rules, like I know he's a big baseball guy,
right?
Just like the unwritten rules of like respect in the game, and like, I don't see him. I think it would be more of like a younger, aggressive coach. Like, I don't know, I don't want to throw out names, but that would be something like that.
Yeah.
I just don't think it would be Belichick in that situation, regardless of the stakes. Like, look, the penalties decline, you just play it. Like, you just play, play.
And that's one of those things that they discuss beforehand, anyways. You know what I mean? Right. Hey, we're both going to come. And even if the Bills just come out with 10 and the Patriots say, no, we'll play with 11 or whatever, fine, whatever, but you still take the delay game penalty and then, they decline it and you go from there. So
Right.
I think that would be a great way to do it. I hadn't really even thought about that. But I know it's been done before. I think that would be really cool. For both teams.
I think it would be a powerful moment for the situation. Yes.
Yeah.
I think Bills fans would worry that Belichick would take advantage in that situation. I'm just like, I don't see anyone taking advantage in that situation.
Well, I mean, Bill, was their nightmare for 20 years. So, I mean, you can't really blame them for,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because there's it's literally like no harm, no foul. Like there's no reason for him to.
Well, and that's the thing. And like I say, you talk about the respect. And I think that the Patriots, honestly, it's one of those things where when you talk about the brotherhood, the NFL brotherhood, the players on your team would be pissed at you. Like if they're gonna try to honor their fallen teammate, and you're gonna try to like get something over on them when you do it, like what the hell is that? That's garbage. You know what I mean? So I think the players would be pissed about him doing that too. So I think that they would be 100% on board with trying to recognize him in some way before the game starts.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask you that to see your thoughts. I'll ask Mark Schofield later as well. I'm just interested to know like what you think of that scenario. I think some Bills fans are still so like in their own world of like, why would anyone disrespect this moment? I don't know why.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, like I say, the Patriots are the big bad guy. You know what I mean? And so they view that, and a lot of people hate Belichick and think Belichick is this mean, decrepit old guy, and it's like that's not really who he is. Like he's not the most fun guy with the media, but as was pointed out by multiple players, and it gets talked about by a bunch of guys. Edelman will talk about it all the time. People talk about it all the time how he's a funny guy, and enjoys it, but also he loves the game. He doesn't give answers about like game plan stuff that's going on.
Sean McDermott though.
Right.
So,
he got up in front of the media today. Belichick got up in front of the media today, and before he answered any questions, he talked for almost 10 minutes about Damar Hamlin and the situation and what's going on. He went on and on and on and on for almost 10 minutes, uninterrupted, just talking about it. And that's the type of stuff, he doesn't give game plan stuff, but he is an open book when it comes to, if you want to ask him about the history of left-footed punters as opposed to right-footed punters, he'll talk for 10 minutes about that. You know what I mean? So he loves that type of stuff. And so, he's not going to give you any game plan stuff. Like, okay, but
I'm one of those Bills fans that have zero problem with Bill Belichick. I mean, just because he had a great combo, just like hopefully maybe someday the Bills, McDermott Allen will have, obviously, I don't know that anyone can replicate the Patriots success, but we'll have some form of success that envies other franchises, in 10, 15 years from now, Mahomes and Andy Reid too, to some level, if they're growing, they need to win another one, but growing in their skill set too.
Right.
But like, I don't have any problems about, sure, there's been times there's some certain Patriots teams that run you a certain way, but I mean, by and large, like Tom Brady still in the same way, like
right. I mean, it's the nature of the beast, right? Like if it's your rival, of course you're going to be like,
he won more games in Buffalo than anyone before Josh Allen, so like of course Bills fans are going to feel a certain way,
right?
It is what it is, but I would totally envision Belichick being on board with that style,
and I think that would be an awesome. And what the hell was that? I think that would be an awesome idea. For the beginning of the game. So, but we'll see what happens, but I think that would be really cool. And I think the Patriots would be 100% on board with that. So that would be great. All right. Well, Kevin, I'm gonna let you go, man. We've been talking significantly longer than I thought, and it's great. I think we had a great conversation. I thought we covered a lot of things. And again, when it says it on the title here, it's bigger than football, right? It's bigger than football. And I think that we learned that this week. And I think that, from everyone, right? Where it just stops mattering, right? We care about football so much, and we care about the playoffs, and we care about our teams. And then that moment happened, and everyone was just kind of like, okay, like whatever, like, and I think I said it on Monday night, like they need to suspend the game. And like, when are they going to make it up? I don't know, but like, it doesn't matter right now. Like they need to do the right thing and just get out of there. And, and now we're at the position where it looks like they're just going to not play that game and have the Bills and Bengals just play 16 games this season instead of 17. And like, so what? It just doesn't matter. And maybe that will impact the seeding a little bit. And it's like, but so it doesn't, like, Why?
Yeah,
do we care
ultimately, it
about that? You know
hurts
what I
the
mean? Like,
Bills, so you can't say they benefited.
and
Ultimately, it hurts the
100%.
Bengals. You can't say they benefited. The
Right.
Chiefs benefited. Like
Right.
we can say it. That's what happened.
Yep.
Who can complain other than the Bills? I mean,
Right. Right.
It's so.
When I think when you talk about a situation like this, right? And not that this would happen, but I think when you look to the leadership again, if the Bengals really, really push back on it and really were like, this is screwing us over, and they really were like, hey, we're playing this game. The Bills, I guess, could have turned around and forfeited the game, but the Bengals could have forced their hand to play. And I think everyone associated realized like, this is just not that important. Like, let's get out of here. We're in the playoffs anyways. If they suspend the game or give us both ties, or whatever the case may be, we're going to clinch the North anyways. So maybe with the 3 instead of the 2. Like, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Maybe with the 2, maybe with the 2 instead of the 1 in the Bills case. Like, so what?
If the Chiefs lose this weekend, like, you could see some element from both teams like caring a little bit more.
Right.
If they don't, there's literally no discussion to be had because
Correct.
because
it doesn't matter.
It
doesn't matter. And so
they'll feel some type of way when the rematch game is in Buffalo, though. I'm assuming like the fans will then all of a sudden you will start to hear a little trickling of like, well, we were up, and these scenarios were of that in 9 minutes, but you were going to hear not like Minnesota didn't come back down 33 or anything.
Right.
Like you'd hear these moments of that. I think that might trickle its way as football gets back to normalcy.
Of course. Of course.
But ultimately, like, it hurts both teams a little bit. I don't think either team, either way, would want to win out of this scenario for not playing the game.
Correct.
It's just not a good look. No one would like your franchise. Like, you would probably lose casual fans and or other teams rooting for you. It's 100%. Just not a good enough to take advantage of a scenario like that. And Joe Burrow would be the first. Not that anyone would, but they'd be the first to not like want this type of win. If the game doesn't get played, it's a no contest, and then we're going to go to whatever they roll out within 48 hours here on what these no contest rules are going to look like. Is it just straight up win percentage? Is Kansas City going to be able to pick between the bye and home field?
Heard that too, right?
That's an example. They could pick their first choice. The Bills would take whatever's next. Is it the loss column, which would technically in a way reward both teams for winning that game? So there's just a ton of litany of answers that could happen in this scenario, and someone's going to be upset. I mean, but like, we move on. And if you really have the best player in Mahomes, like, play a road playoff game that like literally, like, stop complaining. Like, no one won in this situation. No one.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, you've seen things thrown out about they'll throw an extra playoff team in to make 8 playoff teams, which that one doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you do that? That doesn't impact the bottom half of the wild card. What difference does that make?
I think it gives them their revenue back in return and makes Kansas City play. No one has a bye. I guess Miami and New England it would help you.
Well, it certainly would.
I think it would almost clinch you, even losing.
Well,
Pittsburgh or New York, or Pittsburgh or Miami would have to lose, right?
Pittsburgh or Miami would have to lose, right? And Jacksonville, I believe Jacksonville has to beat the Titans because I think Jacksonville has that last tiebreaker. So if the Patriots,
that's right,
Steelers, and Dolphins all lost, and the Jaguars lost, the Jaguars would still make the playoffs.
That's right. Yeah,
I believe. So it's but I mean, like, whatever.
Ultimately, another football. That one is weird, and I don't like it either. But I hate the Bills Bengals play. Obviously, that's not going to happen. So that one's out, and the NFC wild card happened. That is the stupidest one I've heard of. But the 8 seed making it where the next week would be the NFC wild card round and the Bills Bengals game.
So then,
like,
that doesn't make any sense.
The rest of the 5 AFC playoff teams are waiting for the Bills Bengals to complete it.
That's crazy.
It's the stupid. It was early talked about if the game was to get replayed. Luckily, I think that's out. The 8 seed thing doesn't totally bother me because then I do think it does make it, looking at being on the top of the division and the conference, it doesn't totally irk me because Bills, Chiefs, Bengals would then have to play some compilation of Patriots, Dolphins.
Right. And Steelers. You got to assume you're going to win that game. Like, against
if we can't win that game, what are we talking about? Why are we talking about home field advantage if we can't beat Miami and Buffalo again, or Steelers in Buffalo. Like, what are we talking about?
Or even the
here?
Patriots in Buffalo.
Yeah,
it's
even
like,
the Patriots back-to-back weeks. If we can't get one of those wins really in a way, like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
So ultimately, I don't hate that, because then it does even it up and no one should be complaining, and the Chiefs would still have the 1 seed. They just have to go and beat New England or
right.
or whomever.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll see how that kind of all comes out the next few days. But either way, I'm happy that things were handled the way they were. So Kevin, before you go, just tell everyone where they can
for sure,
where they can read you and see you and hear you.
I'm on at Cover One, so podcast network. You can find me at Kevin Messeri. Our show, the Going Deep Podcast, is Tuesdays at 7. Our network is great. We have, like, from Greg Thompson, to Eric Turner, our founder, who does film breakdowns of, not just Bills players. You'll see him, breaking down, so probably Mac Jones film and others at any point. So really does do great in draft prospects, especially. So you really see, some great work from our founder and our podcast network. But you can catch a litany of shows. We'll have Patriots guests on all the time, Jets podcasters. So you can find us over at the Cover One Podcast Network. And all my work is at Kevin Messeri. I'm a pretty active tweeter. That's where you can find the litany of my comments, in-game live commentary. It isn't just pro Bills. It isn't just Bills are the best team ever to play the sport. Yeah. You'll see me actually be critical of certain plays and situations in the game as well.
Yeah. I think you guys do a great job over there. I've had Greg and I met through the Locker Room app back during quarantine. And I thought, you guys just do a great job over there. And like you said, it's not, Bills honks. It's real football analysis, real talk. And I think that's great. I think you guys do a great job over there.
If it's ever super pro Bills, it's because we liked the specific film and the way they're playing. But we'll give you the hard hitting issues too, like some Dorsey issues or whatever happens too. So, I think good guys, of course, to interact. I'd love the interaction on Twitter is great, and we go back and forth to give each other crap sometimes, but the respect is there, which is great. So it's awesome.
Good guys to interact with too. So,
and I appreciate you having me on, Pat. Thank you so much. Look forward to the rest of your episode too.
Yeah, of course. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you. And we'll have to have you back on next year when the Bills come back, or maybe even next week. Who knows? You never know.
We'll be in talks over the next 7 days for sure.
So, all right, man. Well, have a great night. All right. Thanks for coming through.
Talk to you later.
See you. All right. Cool. So that was great. Thanks for Kevin coming on. I appreciate that. I just have a few comments I want to make as well. And yes, Dark Blue Gold, I am incredibly pro Pats. Never criticize a team whatsoever, ever, especially not Miles Bryant or Matt Patricia. But before I get into this week in sports history, I just want to talk just briefly about fantasy football. This obviously isn't a fantasy football podcast. Clearly, I play a ton of fantasy football. I'm a commissioner of a few fantasy football leagues. It's difficult. This is a difficult situation. It's not easy. Okay. Plain and simple. It's just not easy. Right. And people said, oh, well, it's like the COVID years. And no, it's not. It's not like the COVID time. Right. Because if it were like COVID, and if you knew on Saturday that Josh Allen and Joe Mixon and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Stephon Diggs and Devin Singletary, if you knew all those guys weren't playing, you wouldn't have played them. And you might have had to pick someone else up, but you at least would have gotten some points from those guys, right? One of the championship leagues that I'm the commissioner of, right? The score wasn't very high, but it was the guy who was in the lead had Joe Burrow up like 10 points. The guy who was behind had Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Joe Mixon. Down 10 with those three guys. He had an 80% chance of winning that matchup. And then the game ends and he's still losing. And so now it's like, well, if they're not going to play that game, he loses. So I think as an NFL, as a fantasy football commissioner, your job is to do what's fair for everyone that's involved. Right. And so I think for me, when I looked at that, I said, well, I'm going to split that 50-50, right? We have a third place prize, which, by the way, I was fighting for the third place prize. I had T. Higgins. And he had Evan, what's his name? The kicker. I forget. It doesn't matter what his last name is. But he had the Bengals kicker, McPherson, Evan McPherson. That's it. So he had Evan McPherson. I had T. Higgins. I was down like 15. So am I going to come back? Probably not, but I might have. D. Higgins has been known to put up 25, 30-point games. And if that happens, then I would have come in third. And so, but I probably wasn't going to win. But I said to the guy, and he agreed, like, let's eliminate the last place. Let's eliminate the third place prize. It's a small money league, so it's not a big deal. But let's eliminate the third place prize, and let's have the first two split right down the middle. This guy's winning now. The other guy's projected to win by, a significant amount. And let's just split it, right? And I think that that's fair, right? And it's all about being fair. And I've heard crazy things. I've heard like, oh, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And we're going to take these guys out and we're going to replace them this week. So Josh Allen, his points don't get calculated from week 17, but they get calculated from week 18. Joe Burrow, and listen, if that's what your league decides on, that's okay. I have no problem with that, right? But like, don't just end it and be like, yeah, that's it, we're done. Like, it doesn't sit right with me. Now, like in one of my leagues, I was in the championship game. I was up 0.1 points. I had Joe Burrow left. Well, I was already winning. So the game's over, right? Like, we don't have to think about that one. I've won. It's fine, whatever. If I'm down by 0.1 into Joe Burrow, well, like, yeah, the game sleeper might end and they might say you lost. And it's like, no. No one in their right mind believes that Joe Burrow is not going to score more than 0.1 points, right? So, like, it's one of those things where, of course, you win in that situation. It's just like, it is what it is, right? And so that's some of that stuff where you just want to try to be as fair as you possibly can in these situations. And I think that ultimately is what matters the most, right? Try to be fair and try to do what's best for everyone in the league. And so whatever that means. And that might mean different things to different leagues, right? And there are different situations. And of course, there are different players playing. The hard part is that, it wasn't like the Jaguars versus, I don't know, the Colts or something like that, where there's not a ton of guys that are like in the championship game from those teams. You got, some of the best fantasy players in football on those teams, right? Guys are in the championship because Josh Allen was their quarterback. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and so if you stacked Bills and Bengals players, you probably went pretty far, right? And so yeah, okay, now you're in the championship game, and then all of a sudden you just don't get their points. Three of your guys aren't playing, and you don't get their points, and you lose by 10. It seems like that's silly, So anyway, so I just think to be able to think outside of because of course they have to make their own decisions, right? Sleeper and ESPN and Yahoo and and CBS Sports, they have to make a decision about everyone that's playing. And so they make a decision and that's their decision. But you run a league, it's your job to do what's best for everyone that's involved. And so I think that's one of those things that as the fantasy football commissioner, that's what you have to do. And so, that's kind of your job and that's what you take on. Okay. And so I just wanted to say that because I think that's important. I think it's important. And I think, as I said, there's not one right answer. There's not like, oh, you need to do this. No, not necessarily. Like you could come up with some sort of creative way to do it. You could say, hey, we're going to wipe out week 17 and play week 18 again as week 17. I think that's kind of crazy, but you could do that, right? If the people that are in those positions agree to it, you could do that if that's what you want to do. I got no problem. Like, it doesn't matter what it is that you do, but try to do what's fair for everyone that's involved. And I think really that's the thing that makes the most difference, right? And what's funny about it is that, like, if you were to do that, you might get like Derrick Henry back for a team, and you might get and then maybe now someone ends up benefiting because you play week 18 instead of week 17. So those things are kind of there. But again, do something that the league agrees with, and I think that the league is okay with, but also that is best for everyone involved. And again, that's part of the responsibility you take on, in my opinion, as a commissioner, is that you have to do those things. And so anyways, that's just my 2 cents on it. Whatever. Do I know anything? I don't think it matters. I don't know if I know anything, but whatever. You don't have to listen to me. And Dark Blue Gold says that his fantasy championship was settled on Sunday. That's good. So it wasn't mine, right? And so like you didn't have to worry about it. But if you do have to worry about it, then that's where it comes through. And I think again, there's no right answer. I'm not telling you what to do and what not to do. I'm just saying try to be fair to your league and try to be fair to the people in your league, right? If someone's going to lose because they didn't have, like, for instance, a buddy of mine big money league, down by 10 going into Monday night. Or down by, no, not 10, down by like 5 going into Monday night. He had Joe Burrow and Devin Singletary. Burrow had 9 points when the game ended, right? He had already taken the lead when the game ended. And they have prizes for points as well. And he had tied the guy that was second in overall points for the year. And so that's a big payout too. Well, now CBS eliminated those points. So now those points are gone. So now he's not in the lead anymore in the championship game. And he's also not in second place in points anymore, right? And so it's like, well, he obviously would have been in higher than second place points had the rest of the game been played clearly, like you would have to think, right? But it's like, at the very least, you should put him back where he was when the game ended, right? And so I think that's just kind of common sense to me, but it's like doing what's best for everyone involved, right? And I think that's, it's an unprecedented situation, completely unprecedented. This is something we've never seen before. It's never happened before in fantasy football. It's never happened before in football. And again, it has nothing to do with COVID, because in a COVID situation, yes, okay, maybe things got moved or whatever. They never canceled the game. They may have played it in a different week, but they didn't cancel a game. And I think that matters. That matters. And this is an unprecedented situation. And again, your job is to do what's best for your players. And sometimes people may not be happy about it because they might lose instead of winning. But it's like, well, if that's the fair thing to do, it's the fair thing to do. So anyways, I'm going to get off my soapbox. I do have a quick This Week in Sports History, and then we're out of here. Okay, here we go.
And now for something we think you'll really like. This Week in Sports History.
Okay, so I got 2 for you today. The first one is from I'm going to go 1931. The first woman to purchase a baseball team, Lucille Thomas, buys the Topeka Senators franchise in the Western League. Topeka Senators were a minor league baseball team, which became defunct probably, 3-4 years later. But nevertheless, first woman to purchase a baseball team, Lucille Thomas. There you go, 1931. And a less bright one, 1964 in the AFL Championship. Both of these, by the way, were on today, which is January 5th. 1964 in the AFL Championship game in San Diego. The San Diego Chargers beat your Boston Patriots 51-10. Chargers running back Heath Lincoln had 206 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. So not a great ending to that game, but we'll see what happens. So listen, lots of things could happen on Sunday. If the Patriots win, they're in. They win and they're in. If they lose, they might still be in. If the Patriots lose, they might still be in. They need some help. Okay, just so we're on the same page. Oh, I'm sorry. One more. Dark Blue Gold. 1996 on this date, Don Shula declared his retirement. So there you go. 1996, Don Shula declared his retirement. So if the Patriots lose, if they win, they're in. We don't have to think about it. If the Patriots lose, assuming there's no 8 seed, okay, they need the Jaguars to win on Saturday and knock the Titans out of the playoffs. Jaguars win the South. They need the Steelers to lose to the Browns on Sunday at 1 o'clock. And they also need who's the other team? I just said it too. The Dolphins to lose to the Jets. So they need the Dolphins to lose, the Raiders to lose, and the Titans to lose. Those 3 teams need to lose because the Jaguars will get in if everyone loses. Everyone loses and the Jaguars lose. Jaguars are in. And so, the Patriots need, if they lose, that's the way it goes. And if we lose, it's a good question by Dark Blue Gold. If we lose, we're almost definitely going to play the Bills. Now, there is a possibility that if we win and the Bengals win, the Bengals get the 2 seed, the Bills will get the 3 seed, and we'd go to Cincinnati instead. Now, the hard part here is that they would finish with the same record. So I don't know who has the tiebreaker. I'm not sure who has the tiebreaker between the Bills and the Bengals, although I assume it's the Bengals because they're not saying the Bills have clinched the number 2 seed yet, right? Which is what would happen if there was a no contest played. So I assume if the Bills lose and the Bengals win, that the Bills would end up being the 2 seed, Patriots would be the 7 seed, and so they'd go to Cincinnati. So, but if the Patriots lose and back in, then they'll be going to Buffalo again in another week. So we'll see what happens, And listen, if the season's over on Sunday, I think it's still been a productive season. I think it hasn't been great, but we'll do a googly of the 2022 Patriots if that happens next week. So, anyways, thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Listen, go out and hug your loved ones and appreciate every day. I think that's one of the things that you take away from this is that you never know. You just never know. And so appreciate the things that you have and the time that you have, and I appreciate you guys for listening and for being with us all year. So thank you, and hopefully the Patriots pull it out on Sunday. But either way, we'll be with you after the game on Sunday for our post game show, our instant reaction post game show as well. All right, guys, thank you, and have a great night.